one looks back at this decade, then you will always point out certain technologies that have defined the last 10 years. And in 2012, it was the MacBook Air, which kind of has defined every notebook since. But over the last few years, you could say a lot of Windows-based notebooks have caught up. And if one looks at the latest Dell XPS 13, then you could say that it is the truest successor to that 2012 legend. So let's find out if this Dell XPS 13 is worth the hype. The one area where Windows notebooks generally have an edge over MacBooks is their keyboards. And this is not because Windows keyboards have improved exponentially in the last decade or so. It's been more because of Apple's butterfly keyboards, which have been there in recent MacBooks, including the latest MacBook Air. Now, this keyboard doesn't offer a lot of travel and is highly unreliable. So if you had to compare the keyboard on the new Dell XPS 13, which is really clicky, spacious, and generally a delight to type on, then you have to say the Dell XPS 13 wins that battle up against the latest MacBook Air. Arguably, you could even say the Dell XPS 13 has an even better keyboard than even the 8-year-old MacBook Air that is legendary. The other area where the Dell XPS 13 really stands out is its design. It's really sleek and slim, which is kind of the point of an ultra portable, but it's also very understated and business-like, unlike the MacBook Air, which is now offered in rose gold color and in silver or space gray. What you can notice out here is that on the keyboard base there's a rubberized finish out there, which is really warm and not cold aluminium, which is kind of not inviting, which kind of find on the MacBook Air. On top of that, you will find a multitude of ports. You will find 3 USB Type-C ports as opposed to 2 USB Type-C ports on the MacBook Air. On top of that, you even get a SD card slot, which you don't even get on a MacBook Pro. So that's really fantastic. And finally, you get an almost bezel-less screen, which is really delightful to look at. Talking of the screen on the Dell XPS 13, it is fantastic. Firstly, you get a pin-sharp 1080p resolution, which is going to be good enough for most tasks. But more importantly, the colors are really vivid, great contrast, and great viewing angles. So if you're going to be binging a lot of Netflix on this, then this is going to work really well. Finally, you also get a touch screen out here. So if you're going to be operating Windows using touch interface, then this Dell XPS 13 is going to allow you to do that. Really, fat chance of something like this happening on a Mac even in the next decade, because Apple just says that they will not put a touchscreen on a MacBook. The Dell XPS 13 is a powerhouse. You get the latest Intel 10th generation i7 processor coupled with 16 GB RAM. Now compare that to a low voltage 8th generation i5 processor and 8 GB RAM on the MacBook Air, then you realize you're talking about chalk and cheese out here. At the same time, the performance is really good, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of photo editing. If you're going to batch process a lot of photos in RAW using Adobe Lightroom, or you're going to be editing a lot of stuff on Photoshop, then this machine can handle it. On top of that, you can even do light video editing using something like Adobe Premiere. And if you're a gamer, Windows is obviously a much better platform for AAA games, and Intel's latest 10th generation processors also have pretty decent graphics. At least you can play a lot of AAA titles like The Witcher, for instance, in pretty low resolutions, and they are going to work decently. You can't have all of that on a MacBook Air. The Dell XPS 13 is a machine that's geared for office, which means that it's going to really work well in your office, and it's going to work well with Microsoft's suite of Office apps, because Windows is also made by Microsoft, and generally you will find a lot of cross-platform applications, including Adobe's Creative Cloud working really well on Windows. And couple that with the amount of firepower this machine has, you're going to be really happy in an office kind of environment. Finally, you will also notice that your IT managers are going to be more agreeable to Windows, because most of their systems are tuned for Windows, and it's kind of considered to be a little more secure in corporate environment. So yes, if you're going to be using this machine, firstly purchase, but in your office, then your IT manager is going to be pretty happy as opposed to a MacBook Air. Probably the only reason that you won't want to buy this notebook is because the trackpad isn't as good, especially if you're comparing it to a MacBook Air. Now, we all know Apple is legendary for its trackpads. Nobody can come close to Apple when you think of trackpads. But over the last few years, Windows trackpads have improved a lot. And sure, this one is one of the better ones. But the reason that Apple really doesn't need to put a touchscreen on MacBooks is because their trackpad is so bloody good. And that's why this trackpad is going to be irritating, especially if you're coming from a Mac. It's not going to feel as fluid. One of the things that made the 2012 MacBook Air so legendary was its 13-hour battery life. Now, the Dell XPS 13 manages about 50% of the 13-hour mark. Around 6 hours to 8 hours is the best that you'll get. That's with medium to low power usage. And if you go really crazy with this, then that number could fall down to 4 to 5 hours. So that's not insanely great battery life. It's average or maybe slightly above average, but that's a compromise that you will need to make because no modern notebook actually can come close to that legendary 13-hour mark. Even the latest MacBook Air just about manages 9 to 10 hours. At the end of the day, the main reason to buy this Dell XPS 13 is that ultimate balance between power, design, portability, and adaptability. And it checks most of these boxes really well. Probably the biggest downer would be its average battery life. And for people who are so embedded in Apple's galaxy of products, say you own an iPad, you have an Apple Watch, you have an iPhone, and maybe an iMac, this may not be the perfect fit for you, but for everyone else, this is going to be a great notebook. Get that MacBook Air phobia out of your head.